everybody, this is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you for joining me. So today I would like to address the topic of menstruation. So one of my clients actually, Sunny Chick, who left a comment on one of the YouTube videos, asked to explain a little bit about the issue when women go into their menstruation process, why it becomes so heavy and emotionally taxing. Not only can it be physically painful, but we have the hormonal shift, and many of us, our energy shifts immediately, maybe even before we consciously are aware that we've started our menstruation cycle. So this is something that I'm really happy that you asked about, Sunny Chick, because I have been thinking about doing a video on this for years, and for some reason it gets away from me. And I have a lot of different concepts or takes on this from my experiences of doing healings, because I personally have had a lot of struggle hormonally, emotionally, physically with my menstruation. I had a lot of pain for years and years and years. And as I got older, and I hear it's pretty general, it gets better every month. And I've been told that after childbirth, it's a breeze. So that'll be wonderful. I don't have children yet, but one day. And when I was younger, it wasn't only super painful, but I would vomit and black out. And that happened pretty much every month, and I was bedridden for days, usually 2-3 days. 3 days was my average when I was 17 and 18, and as I got older, it would get easier. And anyhow, so this is something that I have done an infinite amount of healings on myself. And some of the experiences that I had, so I'm going to speak to my personal experience and what I've received over the years via channeling and going back, doing just a plethora of past life healings around this. And so I'll give you a lot of different perspectives or points of view on what I've received in regard to what's wrapped around all of the underbelly of feminine menstruation. So a lot of things here, and pardon how kind of discordant or jumbled this might come out, because it's kind of all over the board. But one experience that I used to have a lot, and I notice it come up, though I'm able to observe and be aware consciously of what's happening, is I noticed in my energy and my emotional stance, as soon as I would move into quite possibly my PMS, so before menstruation, but absolutely during my menstrual cycle, or my menstruation, excuse me, my energy would shift in a way where I would take on a bit of even a vengeful, angry, spiteful, blaming type stance towards men in the masculine. And so suddenly something would come over me in a way where my whole energy vibe now was kind of colored with this cloud of being upset towards the masculine and to men. So a lot of past life healings revealed to me, first of all, in the experience of the actual bloodletting, would bring up a lot of DNA memories around past lives where I've been raped, been molested, murdered, children have been murdered, all of the things. So as soul aspects, we have been through the gamut. And for most of you that have actually done a lot of past life regressions or healings, you're probably pretty aware that you have had experiences in infinite lifetimes and dimensions where not only have you been raped, but you've raped. Not only have you been murdered, but you've murdered. You've been good, you've been bad, you've been dark, you've been light. So we've all done it. in some form. We've gone through the gamut. Our soul probably has desired to have that experience for a learning basis. So everything that I'm saying right now absolutely is not a blame. It's just my personal experience from this version, this standpoint, because I am absolutely aware that I've had many a past lives where I've been a man and I've done horrible, horrific things, not only as a man but as a woman, and they've happened to me, and on and on. So there's my little disclaimer, okay? But in my personal experience, I would register as I'd go back into healing space when this energy would come up, is that it would bring up the shock trauma, the ingrained memory in my blood, in my cells, of those types of experiences that held shadow pain body energy around the physical area of my sexual organs and things to do with my root chakra and my sex chakra. And so a lot of that had to do around experiences with sex, with childbirth. So that's one thing that could be coming up for women when they move into their menstruation, is any pain body that could be dormant in the other times, the other days of their month, that's wrapped around sexual trauma, birthing trauma, anything to do with that may get activated, and it's kind of saying a hello to get your attention in a way to come heal that. And it doesn't mean that you need to go in and heal every single experience. That is no longer necessary, thankfully. You know, I did that for a lot of years. It would go and take you directly to each experience or lifetime. And you might still need to do that. You might need to go to past root lives, because there's often a root experience and then many other experiences that are very similar to that. The root's where the pattern started. So if you can find the root life, you don't have to go through, you know, and pick every leaf off the tree to get to the roots. You can do the root life. So that's one take on it. Now, another very interesting take that I really was so happy when I registered this is when I was looking into that kind of rejection and repulsion of the masculine energy in general, I realized that because we're both masculine and feminine, that inside my own being, when this process would start in my body physically, a part of me, since I was rejecting the masculine in those moments, I was also rejecting the masculine process that my body was going through. So now many women think of their moon time, their menstruation, as a very feminine process, right? Because only the females go through it. But in that very sacred feminine process, there's a masculine energy happening and there's a feminine energy happening always in life. No matter what's happening, there is the masculine and the feminine energy working together in some form. And often we're imbalanced and we have to find that balance. So while we think of it as a feminine process, and then you think about the concept of ebb and flow, and ebb usually takes on the standpoint of the feminine energy, and the flow usually takes on the standpoint of the masculine energy. Well, we know in our menstruation, we're flowing. We're literally flowing blood out of our body, okay? So that's a very masculine process inside of a feminine sacred process. So I realized that if I can embrace the masculine energetics that my body is moving through, because after all, that masculine energy is moving through to help me honor my sacred space as a feminine being, then it helped me so much more to move into a place of acceptance and balance in my energy. So I realized not only was a part of me maybe rejecting the masculine energy or the man energy from whatever plethora of upsets I've had in past lives, I realized that I was also rejecting the masculine energy, which is absolutely vital in my process inside of me. So I started to view it in that way and think about literally what's happening emotionally and physically in my body, and what part of that is masculine energy and what part of that is feminine energy. And honoring that masculine, because that masculine energy is absolutely present to support and help that feminine energy, and vice versa. And when I accepted that concept and had that experience, I had a huge shift in the way I physically felt from thereafter in my process. Because many women, it's such an intense time for us, and it can be so painful, and it can be so debilitating, and we're exhausted and we can't do anything. And not only are we physically exhausted, but our hormones are going crazy. So, most people know when a woman's in PMS, you better watch out. So that not only is all of that happening, but I had such a huge amount of resistance around the whole process, which, as we know, resistance is futile. It just makes it worse. So I came into a place of acceptance and appreciating the process, and that helped so much for me to find gratitude in this process. Another concept that was brought forth from my massage teacher back in the day, and she was talking about how, women are so blessed in this way because our body initiates a cleansing and a detoxing to happen on a monthly. So as many people might choose to do a detox, once a year, twice a year, whatever, women, it's not even really a choice for us. We absolutely detox and we cleanse out. And that's a very wonderful thing happening for our physiology, is our body is literally cleansing. So that's another thing that I really appreciated hearing, because it gave me that much more ability to honor that sacred process. Something that Earth Mother told me one time in regard to menstruation is that as we all are tapped in to the all that is, and each individual human represents the mass consciousness, everything that we do represents and gives forth or takes away from mankind. Okay, so we are a representative of the whole of mankind, and because of that, and because we're also the concept of acupuncture needles on this earth, so all of us are generating and running energy which can either feed or harm Earth Mother and our humankind. So because of that, with women especially, and since Earth Mother obviously shows up as a feminine being, she utilizes us, or we gift her help in clearing out the mass consciousness pain body. And this is a very cool thing, which goes back to the way indigenous people and indigenous women actually move with their process. Because in our society, we kind of have been taught to shun our blood. It's a gross thing to talk about. You feel embarrassed when you go to the store and have to buy pads or tampons, and it's embarrassing when you have an accident or things like that. So our society doesn't really embrace it as this amazing sacred process like many of the indigenous societies do. And those women in the indigenous societies know that it's an honored process, that blood is super powerful, and they gift it back to the earth in a very natural form. Well, the way that we tend to collect our blood and throw it away in the trash, it doesn't really get to go back to Earth Mother in a very direct way, which is a bit of a shame, because Earth Mother loves when we give our blood to her body. And what happens, and it's very cool to watch energetically, is when blood is gifted to earth in a healthy way. So I don't mean like bloodletting, like cutting yourself and doing some ritual around that. I'm talking about, it's a natural process where you're literally shedding blood, and it just happens through nature. When you give it back to earth, it helps her purge out all of the blood that has been spilled in the name of violence, in the name of hate, in the name of fear. It's very amazing. And it takes me back to the memory of one specific healing I had, where I went back to a lifetime where wherever it was an earth healing I was doing, and Earth Mother was showing me that in this space of land there had been mass bloodshed from a war or a battle. And because of that, so much pain body and trauma gets absorbed into the earth. And just like how we store pain and trauma in our cells, now in that quadrant of land, this pain body energetically and that trauma and all the humans that lost lives, that pain and that shadow energy is now stored in that quadrant of land. And so a lot of light workers know that if you tap in on earth healings and you go back, you can energetically clear that and clean that out. Though because Earth Mother is a physical body just like us, it's extremely vital for her to have the pain body purge through a physical stance. So if women actually collected their blood and offered it back to the earth, we could do so much healing. We could do intentional mass land clearings. It's amazing what we can do with that. If you were to do a bloodletting ceremony and honor all of the elementals and gift it back to the earth, there's so much more energy you're creating around the good frequencies that combat, I don't want to say combat, but neutralize or transmute some of the negative shadow, violence, and hate energy that's been spilt onto the land. That one's huge. And it'll be a wonderful day when all women know that and actually move forth and gift their blood back to the land. I remember hearing one time Earth Mother told me, I wish I remember the stat, I don't remember the percentage, but she told me if a certain amount of women on all at the same time went and did their bloodletting, the way the earth would elevate and its frequency in that moment would be just tremendous. And so there you have it, women. If we all actually stood up and honored our bodies in the way that we desire deep down, if you're not conscious of that desire, there's a lot of things that we can do with our blood. So another thing is that when we are running the menstruation process, a lot of us, all of us in some way, as I said, we're acupuncture needles and we're all representatives of humankind and of Earth Mother. But many of us have made very specific, kind of more thorough agreements to run the energy, run the pain body of Earth. So that could be one reason for many of us that have extremely painful, intense, debilitating menstruations, because not only are you running your own energy, but you're running the energy of many more people or a certain situation or whatever maybe subconscious agreement you've got going with Earth Mother at this time to run this energy. You're cycling out so much more than just the physiological process that's happening in your body. And a really cool concept that I just heard, I wish I could remember this gentleman's name, but I just saw this really neat series of videos that this, I believe he's a doctor, he might be a scientist, but he studies the blood and he talks about the blood in the perspective that the blood is actually the representation of our spirit. And when you look at, like in the You Can Heal Your Life book with Louise L. Hayes, she talks about how blood represents our joy. So to me, that kind of correlates, because when I think of my spirit, I think of joy, I think of happiness. And he's talking about how, depending on our situation with our blood and how healthy our blood is or how unhealthy it is, that's how healthy our spirit is inside of our physical vessel. So the more grounded you are as a human, most likely the more healthy your blood's going to be, and the more your spirit is fully anchored into your physical body. So I think that's a very interesting concept, and I haven't put a lot of processing around that concept of spirit as our blood being the physical connection and anchoring into our body, and how that correlates with menstruation. But I'm sure there's a there's plenty around that to tap into. So I hope that this helps in some way. And if you are a woman that has a lot of trouble with your menstruation, and you haven't necessarily looked into that in a spiritual standpoint, and maybe you've taken care of all the things that we've always been told to do about balancing our hormones and all of the different minerals and vitamins we need to utilize and how to treat our body and all of that, all of the physical health care that we need to do. But adding on another holistic layer of the metaphysics of it, the energy of it, I would advise, if you're open, to start tapping in to the feelings that come up for you during that time, and maybe the sadness or the anguish or the anger, and start to look at that maybe as messages from other parts of you, not just your hormones being in flux, but also a time where, in a way, the veils are thin and other aspects are reaching out to you, whether that be aspects of your own soul or other aspects of maybe Earth Mother or mass consciousness. And you can tune into that and have a communication and find navigation through your intuition around what it is that you're ready to be guided towards, to heal and look at. I hope that sheds some light on the very interesting and not often talked about or celebrated topic of female menstruation. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to check out my website, it's worldpeaceprojects.global, and you're welcome to email me if you're interested in receiving a healing or a channeling. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.